Good evening, everyone. I think let's respect time, and therefore we start the webinar for today evening. At the very outset, I thank all of you for joining this webinar on the contemporary theme of ROI in management education, an Indian perspective. Even before we start, it has been a sad past few days because India lost one of the guiding lights of Indian management education, Padma Shri Dr. Pritam Singh, on 3rd June 2020. I will request all the panelists and attendees that we will be having silence of a minute in his memory. And for the theme today, he had a wonderful quote. Gagan, can you just share the screen and put that quote while we go for a 1-minute silence in his memory? Thank you, everyone. Gagan, you may now remove the screen. COVID times, and that is what we all are in. There are questions which are being asked across sectors. There are questions for which many of us do not have answers at this point of time. There are questions for which the answers change. And when we talk about the world, management education is no exception as well. These are the unprecedented times. And therefore, we thought that it is our endeavor at People Labs to help the MBA aspirants, to help the B school educators, to help the present students understand the perspective about one of the most important things which many of us consider while talking about management education, that is ROI, return on investment. All of us just now saw a quote, and that was what Dr. Pritam Singh thought about ROI in education. I'm extremely thankful to all the esteemed panelists who have kindly consented to join us on a Sunday evening. We all are aware that Zoom nowadays, more than a video conferencing platform, has also become a social networking platform. And I thank all the esteemed panelists from the bottom of my heart and from entire team People Labs for kindly consenting to join us and share their valuable insights on this important theme. We are privileged to have with us Dr. Rishikesha Krishnan, who is the Professor of Strategy and Director-Designate for IIM Bangalore. So thank you so much for joining us. Next, we have Professor Dr. Bhimaraya Metri, Director IIM Trichy. And before that, he has been associated with a lot of business schools, including MDI and IMI. Thank you so much, Professor Metri, for joining us. Then we have Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, Dean and Professor Marketing at SPJIMR, Institute of Management and Research, Mumbai. Thank you, sir. And last but definitely not the least, one person who has been the guiding light again for People Labs for last 10 years, Dr. H. Chaturvedi, who's the Director, BIMTECH, and also the alternate President, EPSI. Thank you so much for joining, sir. As we start at the very outset, I want to share the flow which is there. I'll be requesting all the panelists to share their initial thoughts, maybe in 6 to 7 minutes each. After that, I'll be posing a couple of questions based on what they share. And after that, we'll be taking the questions from the audience and we'll try to do best justice. But I also reserve the right to moderate the questions. And it is not necessary that all the questions will be directed to the panelists only. So we'll be moderating the audience questions and we'll be passing on the relevant ones. Without much ado, may I now request Dr. Rishikesha Krishnan, sir, to share his initial thoughts. Sir, over to you, please.
Thank you, Subrat. It's a pleasure to be part of this gathering. And a special hello to all the fellow panelists as well. It's good to be part of this illustrious panel. I'm going to just interpret the topic in a slightly broader way to say that what is the future of management education? If you do an MBA today, is that the right decision you are taking? Which essentially will indirectly, of course, connect to the topic which you have already outlined. So let me just set the broader context. The broader context is, of course, today that while we might be in some kind of a trough as far as economic growth is concerned, it's very clear that the country needs to rapidly grow out of this, and not only grow out of this slowly, but as quickly as we can. And the economic agenda for the next few years has already been set by the government and many of the analysts who keep looking at what's happening in the economy. And one important element of this whole framework we are looking at for the future is an enhanced emphasis on what we are able to do domestically, which the Prime Minister has called Atmanirbhar Bharat. And clearly that means that industrial activity is going to be focused on, manufacturing is going to be an important focus area as well. And the whole endeavor is going to be to make the Indian economy as robust as possible, and not only meet the needs of domestic consumers, but also globally wherever it is feasible to do so. So given this backdrop, it's very clear that the industrial sector will play a very important role, as it has in the past, but even more so in the coming years. And that certainly means that there is going to be a lot of importance to having the right managerial talent who can enable this kind of growth to happen. So the first point I would like to underline is that while there might be temporary gloom at this point of time, I don't think there is going to be any significant harm to the long-term prospects of MBA. In fact, it's the opposite. I think long-term prospects of MBA education are good. Okay, let me move on to the second point. The second point I would like to make is that even in this period of slowdown and gloom, we have seen that certain enterprises have done extremely well. We're certainly looking at digital enterprises which have, like you can take an example of Zoom, which has increased its valuation, increased its sales substantially. Even other existing digital enterprises for the most part have done quite well. So there will be sectors which, in spite of ups and downs, continue to do well. And particularly the sectors which embrace the changes we have seen in the last few years as far as digital is concerned, I would expect that these sectors will do quite well going forward. So that suggests that not only is the economy going to grow, there are several important sectors which will grow in spite of any temporary ups and downs and aberrations which we might see in the economy. The third important point I would emphasize is that while the economy will grow and while certain parts of the economy like digital will continue to be very important, the most important success factor for an individual MBA aspirant is going to be his or her agility. What we have seen in the last few years is lots of quite rapid changes. We saw social media coming in, we saw the growth of digital, we've seen the increased importance of data and data analytics. And we've seen certain sectors go up in importance, go down again. I mean, for example, just a year back, we were all predicting that private transportation will disappear and Uber and Ola will become the themes of the future. Now with the pandemic, people are rapidly changing that view. And in fact, today I was reading an interview with one of the consumer finance company managing directors. And he said that they now expect a resurgence in personal transportation because given the challenges due to the virus, many people would prefer to go in their own vehicle if at all they have to travel rather than going in a shared vehicle like a Uber or an Ola. So what all of this means is that it's not going to be that easy to predict which particular industry, which particular company, which particular technology will succeed. But MBA aspirants who are able to mold themselves to the emerging opportunities will be able to have quite a successful career going forward. So what that means is you need to understand all the emerging changes that are happening. You need to have quite a wide skill set. You can't perhaps afford to take very big risks because you don't know exactly which sector is likely to succeed. But if you can be agile and if you can be abreast with the current developments, you should have a positive future as an MBA aspirant. So these are the three key points I would like to make at this point of time. Thank you, Subrat. Thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you so much, sir, for your initial words of wisdom. Before I go next to Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, Prapti, can we have the first poll, please?
Yeah.
This is a poll for the attendees. May we have the results?
So the question that we asked the attendees was, according to them, which of the following is the most important factor while finalizing a B school? So 42% of them, for them, ROI is the most important factor, which is followed by brand is what they consider as another important factor while finalizing a B school.
Thank you so much, Prapti. So with this poll as the backdrop, we move to Dr. Ranjan Banerjee for his initial thoughts. Over to you, sir. You need to unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, it's a pleasure to be on this panel. I think all the panelists are friends and peers whom I look up to. So it's a pleasure to be on the panel. Thanks, Subrat. Good to see you again. Welcome to all the guests who have turned out on a Sunday evening. We appreciate your faith in us. We respect the time that you're giving us on Sunday. I'll build on this, and I'll say 2-3 things. One is that the return on investment on management education is difficult to measure, because we are saying management education is an investment made for lifetime. If you look at the MBA program, the way it's designed, you teach people strategy in the first year, and many of them will not be implementing strategy or deciding strategy for the first 5 to 10 years of their career. So it's an education for a lifetime. Therefore, ROI is a very difficult thing to measure. ROI becomes a perception. I would like to talk about 2 or 3 simple things. I think first thing we need to look at is how is management going to change. The second is, you've talked about the ROI on management education. You've not talked about the ROI on the MBA. The ROI on the MBA is a subset of the ROI on management education, and I'll come to that. So 2 or 3 changes you can expect. I think one clear change you can expect is that, particularly in technology, but in other sectors also, people have realized that work for home is a viable option in a large number of organizational settings. And the number of jobs, corona or no corona, which can work from home will definitely go up. Now, there are many reasons for this, but one technology CEO put it very well. He said, if you're looking at a city like Mumbai, then you are saving 3 hours of employee time, productivity and pollution if the person is working from home. Now, just take that one simple thing, that a large number of people are going to be working from home. And the consequent implication is that output-driven employee relationships become more important than time-driven employee relationships. So the idea of punching the clock becomes much less. Now, the moment you do that, then suddenly the entire barrier to a gender workforce becomes significantly reduced. So, so you are talking about a significant expansion and reconceptualization of the nature of work. So that is, to me, one simple thing. The second is that if you look at systems, the way we have defined systems, classically we have designed systems for what I call efficiency. That if I wanted to make 500 cars of 3 types, I would have one factory in one location, another factory in another location, and a third factory in another location, and they would specialize. Tomorrow, if I'm in a situation where I know one factory may be in a lockdown zone and another factory may not be in a lockdown zone or some other disruption, we have to move from designing systems for efficiency to designing systems for resilience first and efficiency second. So that's the second dimension. The third dimension is, I think this has happened before Corona. There were times in my era, I was an MBA graduate of 89, where you joined a company like Unilever or ITC and said, I want to retire as the chairman. And there are batchmates of mine who have followed similar career tracks. I think the guy who joins the company today is not looking at a 25-year career horizon. So the focus of the MBA itself must shift from employment to employability. So if you take all of these 3 together, there are 2 or 3 points I want to make. I think the content of what we teach in the management program is one aspect, but teaching people how to learn, and this is really on Rishi's point on agility, it is how do people learn in different circumstances? How do they repurpose themselves? How do they have clarity on who they are and what they want to do? And this aspect of management education, I think, will become important. Second aspect, I think management education will need to become less siloed, because we are moving from a narrow functional organization where the boundaries are watertight to a much more integrated organization where the linkage between business and other dimensions, business and sustainability is one obvious example, is going to be much larger. So we are looking for more connectivity across functions. We are looking for learning agility. We are looking for even recruiting students for attitude and learnability and collaboration. So some of these are trends that you will see at a third level. My final point is just simply this, that you see the model at which we have looked at education and management education. It's a staccato model. It says that you do an MBA, you spend X lakhs at one point in time, and then 15 years later, maybe you do an advanced management program. So your investments come once, and 15 years later, you do not make continuous investments in your own learning. I think that has to change today. So I think just as if you have an annual budget for food, you have an annual budget for clothing, you have to have an annual budget for continuous learning. And this is an opportunity for individuals as well as an opportunity for the educational institute. So I'll just stop with these brief comments and leave it there.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ranjan. Two things which I take from what you and Rishikesha talked about. It is about learnability and it is about agility. And on a lighter note, when you talked about the 3-hour commute time in Mumbai traffic, I'm pretty sure Rishikesha will agree that Bangalore traffic is no better. And it will be the same. Just the silk board red light is sufficient at times for those 3 hours which is there. Now, before I move for the initial remarks to Dr. Bhimaraya Metri, can I have the second poll, Prapti?
Sure.
We may have the results.
So 67% of the attendees agree that ROI is best determined by the average salary post MBA.
So as I come to you, Metri sir, I think this poll gives us one statistics. I do not know whether you agree or not, but I thought that will be one, precursor of what the, attendees think about ROI and how it should best be measured. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Subrat, and my dear esteemed panel members and all the participants. So now I have gone through, I have seen the poll, but I will come back to my answer to that. But to begin, I will begin with the end in mind. So as Professor Ranjan and Professor Rishikesh rightly said, management education landscape is changing very fast. And is happening, uncertainty is there. And in such kind of environment, you can find 3-4 observations. One is, as Ranjanji rightly said, people are not working for life or for even 30, 40 years in one company or generation to one company. So now the typical business cycle for any individual is about 3 to 4 years. They move for another company for better opportunity or whatever or technological change at all. That is one. Then average life expectancy has gone up. It is around 80 years or so. Now in 80-year period, this generation, people are working, 5 generation people are working together. Right from, all these millennials and all those 5 variety of people. And their objectives are different. They are working together. Expectations are different. Decision-making process is different. This is a kind of lot. Apart from that, then another important phenomena here in this disruptive world is majority of workers, whatever labor force we say, it is also predicted that 40% of the people are on contract now. The permanent employment kind of thing is going to go down. Earlier it used to be 100%, 80%, 90%. That is going to come down, and employees on contract are going to increase. And apart from that, the virtual CEO, virtual CFO kind of thing is going to come. One person working for many companies. So now here, till now we used to say companies or organizations are greater than individuals. Now future belongs to the world where individuals are bigger than the the companies. So it is difficult to believe, but that kind of scenario is going to come because one person sitting somewhere managing many companies, because it is a specialization and expertise. So this is the kind of world, and this is the kind of product are expected in coming years, and these are the changes happening. So in this kind of world, now MBA education, what we are teaching today, we are not teaching for the job. So today expectation from the MBA education is preparing the students for the life. As Ranjanji rightly said, we are not preparing them for the immediate job, first job. We have to prepare the MBA students for the life. And life means today it is a lifelong learning. So whatever we learn today, probably that's application is going to be for only shorter period. So skilling, reskilling, upskilling, learning, relearning, unlearning, this is a continuous phenomena. So how to prepare our students for life in the sense, after 3 years, what job is going to come, we don't know, but we have to prepare the students for that job. Means preparing the students for the unknown job. So this is the kind of dynamics, uncertainty is there in the world, and for that we have to restructure our curriculum system, and also we have to equip our universities and systems with digitalization. So in this kind of environment, when you talk about ROI, then first of all, my one important observation is we have 3 variety of systems, education systems. You know, some MBAs are coming out of the university system. Some of them are coming from the government universities, and because basically larger funding is done by the government, and some institutions are self-financed, and some institutions are like premier institutions of national importance. Now, if you look at 3-4 institutions, their purpose, their focus, as well as their scope are entirely different. So in this context, important to redefine, revisit the definition of ROI. So ROI, what we define, it is a very, very, I can say a shorter meaning. In broader sense, ROI includes much more than the average salary. That is what, I think all of you agree, and my all student fraternity as well as faculty colleague agree. It is much, much bigger than that is one of the component average salary, but it is much bigger than that. For example, in today's environment, a student's experience in the academic life, students' admission to experience working studying in the institution, the kind of interaction with the faculty member, chamber consultation hour, library experience, digital experience, and then they move to the corporate world, and the kind of profile they get, because they're getting that profile not only studying MBA, but from which institution they are graduating. So these are all the matters come into picture, and once how they grow in the organization from one level to the next level, to one company to the next company, how they grow till the superannuation, or till they decide not to work, because maybe in future retirement life may not be there. So entire life cycle, one has to look into that, defining ROI. So total life cycle, right from joining the MBA school to till the decide not to work. So if you thing, then you can see that it is whatever the investment. I prefer to use the word investment than ROI, but how much, what investment I have done for the MBA education, and in the entire life cycle of whatever the period you decide, what I gained. And then if you look into that kind of profile, kind of people worked, and kind of turning point in your life comes because of that. All those things, if you take into account tangible and intangible, then real ROI you can work out. It is difficult to work out, but for ROI, you have to take into account tangible, intangible, right from admission to till the superannuation or retirement. So that is the real ROI. And that is where, when you look into this kind of things, certain companies come to certain business school because of the stature of that particular business school. So and so business school gets so and so companies. It means then when you decide the ROI, maybe your fee may be very less in one of the institution, but you will not get your dream company. So then that simply connecting to the salary is not going to give the real ROI. That is why even though investment may be more in some of the business schools, the fee may be more, but the kind of company you join, kind of profile you will get, that really gives your ROI for entire life. So preparing for life and lifelong learning as well as a decision making power for entire life. So that is extremely important. And to prepare such kind of students, large amount of investment is also needed in the business school and the business school which invest a lot for modernization, digital technology, and best of the best talent, best of the best environment and the facility ecosystem. That also one has to take into account while deciding fee and also while working out ROI. So this is what I want to say up to now, and later on I can take up the questions.
Thank you so much, Metri sir. I think the two key things which you highlighted very beautifully, one was the focus on quality, that where you are going is going to play an important role. And the second thing which you talked about, that while looking at ROI, we cannot ignore the intangible benefits which one gets. And those intangible benefits are going to be there with the students for lifelong. So those were two great insights which you provided. As I come to you, Chaturvedi sir, I'm tempted to read a sentence by Nabil Sabio when he said, when fishermen cannot go to sea, they repair their nets. When the fishermen cannot go to sea, they repair their nets. And I am putting this sentence in the context that, you know, there is a lot of anxiety amongst the students about two things. One, that whether they should go for MBA this year or they should drop an year. And second is about, again, the limited meaning of ROI, which many of them, and I think the poll over here also has expressed. So these are the two initial thoughts with which I hand it over to you for your initial thoughts, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Subrat. Thank you, People Labs. I enjoyed listening to my colleagues who have spoken before me, and they have beautifully explained that how the millennium generation who are connected to this webinar, they should take a decision about when to do MBA and where to do, and whether ROI on management education can be measured only by average salary. And the poll results are showing that the majority of them believe that average salary should be the parameter for calculating the ROI. So, but I think my earlier speakers, they have one commonality, that they are giving a broad horizon for looking into the career and the life for the people who are seeking this answer. I would like to just make a few points. Number one, when the people who are entering this year in MBA education, they want to enter and they have taken admission or they are deciding to take admission within next 1 or 2 months, they have to think about life, their future life. As has been said that the average age is increasing. They have to live by 85, 90. Globally, it has been said that because of the development of health and medicines, it is increasing. But two recent factors have made a big change. One was the disruptive technology, like artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc., etc. And commonly, these technologies are also known as Industry 4.0. So there is a big shift from linear growth to exponential growth. These technologies are making it possible in certain industries, and later in future, it will be exponential growth in the economy, it is expected. So there is a lot of disruption in almost all the sectors, and those disruptions are affecting lives today, and they will affect lives tomorrow in a bigger way. Second big change, which we are undergoing very painful change, that is COVID-19. And COVID-19, it is being debated and discussed, but one thing is sure, that the intellectuals, economists, sociologists, all of them are agreeable on one point, that the post-COVID life in the world will be different in many ways from the pre-COVID life. There will be many issues will be settled, whether the globalization will be the future or nationalism will be the future. And it has been said that work from home will become reality for millions of people. So I think there will be change in the composition of the candidates for MBA from the gender perspective. More and more females will be thinking about that they will not face the arduous journey for doing a job 12 hours because of the long distances, and then coming home and bearing the responsibility as a housemaker. As has been said by Dr. Metri, that you people have to have several careers and jobs in your next 25 years or 30 years. And panelists who are here, they have not shifted many times. They have, I think, they have followed certain careers for a long time. But you people have to change according to the trends of the future. So there will be several careers and several jobs. So you will require lifelong learning, and disruptive technology will accelerate this process, that after 2 or 3 years, there will be big changes in the skill sets required by the industry. So lifelong learning will be a big factor for the survival of the millennium generation, future generation. So what are the options that MBA, the young generation can have? If they do not do MBA, there are no options better than MBA. I think engineering, liberal arts, or medicine, studying them will require, I think, not better prospects than MBA. So MBA has this advantage that it is better than many other disciplines. Now the question is, I will raise that, although my fellow colleagues are saying the same thing, you cannot decide life in the narrow term of the money you will be getting while being selected by a company or during the first 5 years. Life has many turns, ups and downs. So you need to define your future life, not only in the financial terms, not only in the tangible terms, but you have to think that management education, if good quality management education you pursue, residential MBAs and non-residential MBAs in many universities, where you go and take classes and come back. So there is big difference between residential character of management education and non-residential. So when you live in a campus for 2 years, you get so many networks, you get friends, you undergo life-changing experiences, you learn new skills. So I think these are the intangibles you cannot ignore in life. And there are umpteen examples that people have made friends, people have made families in campuses, and those turning moments in their life when they were living, those turning points have made them exceptionally good leaders, exceptionally good entrepreneurs, exceptionally good human beings. So lastly, I would like to say that when you have to take a very crucial decision, what to do, what not to do, where to pursue MBA, where not to pursue, and how much you should pay, how much you should not pay, I think a very good example is whether you want to you live like your life like a sprint or like a marathon. If you assess your life as a sprint, 100 meters race, fine, average salary can be the criteria. If you think life is like a marathon, then you should not ignore other factors. So average salary, reasonably you should give weightage, but it is not the only parameter for deciding the ROI or management education. And management education in the world, I think least risk factor associated with management education come what may, the whole world may change. There may be many ups and downs like COVID, but management education will remain one of the most vibrant, popular disciplines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You beautifully outlined the intangibles which one gets, and one should look at the B school. And since you were talking about network, I was just reminded of one sentence which I heard quite a few years ago, that your network is your net worth. And Metri sir also talked about the intangibles. I think these are the intangibles which you get at a B school. They are just priceless, and they cannot be evaluated in terms of the average salary which you get. Coincidentally, Rishikesh sir, yesterday I was talking to one of my school friends, and I shared him about this webinar, and he was all fan of your storytelling and you know, the way you are an amazing professor. He's from your 2007-9 batch of IIM Bangalore. So now, as discussed, I'll be posing few questions, but at the same time, we have got one more person, a great friend, Ramanuj here with us. Ramanuj heads, he's an MTech from IIT Kharagpur, and coincidentally also heads the career launcher right now for Noida Sector 62. Ramanuj, if quickly in say 90 seconds you can share, what are few of the questions which the kids come up to you, because this is the time when they are making decisions. So what are a couple of questions that will also give some richness to the discussion which we are having? Over to you, Ramanuj.
Okay, thank you, Subrat. Yes, definitely. Like in last 10 years, since I have joined education sector for my like long-term career options, then I used to meet kids, and kids coming from the various background. Basically, the kids coming from the urban background, we hardly find these kind of discussion, ROI and all, because kids are very clear about the colleges. But the kids coming from the village background, they do ask this question, why these management colleges are having a range of fees. That's the one. So they actually ask question particular about the colleges. Even they used to ask question, IIMs are the government organized, why they charge so much fee. So fee is the one of the criteria, but we have heard the all of the panelists, and then obviously we need to. My simple question to all of the panelists from the student side: what could be the strong reason when I don't think about the fee? So it's all about somewhere I need to get confidence on what like Dr. Chaturvedi sir were also saying. We need to look for long term, but that confidence should come within those kids. And one more observation I have seen between the male and female candidates. Male candidates are ready to take risk, but when it comes to the girls candidate, I have seen many times the good candidates who really aspiring to go to the good colleges, but just because of this money they need to pay in the MBA college, they change their decisions. So I believe I'm also looking at that answer as a mentor, because we are the first gateway. When kids reaches to you, actually they are staying with us for a year or 6 months, and so we as a mentor also want that reason how these female candidates should be given a enough region, enough confidence to them, so that when it comes to college selection, they should not take that fee as only a criteria, which we are actually discussing in the ROI. And the last question, uh, because management slowly getting traction to become entrepreneurs. So many kids also talking in this term. They're saying, if I go to the college where the fee is low, it will help me to become entrepreneur sooner. So how we can counter, how we can suggest them, how we can give some thoughts to them. So I'd like to get some views, and so that we can propagate among the kids. Thank you, Subrat.
Yeah, thanks, Ramanuj. I think Ramanuj talked about two broad aspects. One was about the demographic profile of aspirants, wherein he talked about urban versus rural or on a gender basis. And then the other thing which he talked about was on entrepreneurship. Rishikesh sir, before I come to you for my first question, I'd like to inform all the attendees. You know, there are specific questions about colleges. So should I join college X or college Y? On behalf of all the panelists, let me tell you in advance that these questions, unfortunately, we are not going to take, giving you specifics about that this college or that college, we will not be taking those questions. But Rishikesh, sir, I come to you as one of the, names in strategy area in the country. And my simple question to you is, when we talked about ROI, it is not only the average salary, but what are the 4, 5, 3, 2 components apart from the average salary? And again, I'm talking about average salary because audience has overwhelmingly voted for it. While calculating or while considering ROI, what would be 3, 4 components which you think people must keep in mind? Over to you, sir.
I'll just build on what the panelists have already explained. So one important element you should look at is what will be your peer group, who would be the other people studying in the program which you are trying to join. What are you likely to learn from them? What will be the lifelong bonding and experience you will have in interacting with that particular group of people? That to my mind is quite important. For example, I'm on the WhatsApp groups of many of my earlier institutions where I studied, and I find a lot of rich discussion happening in those WhatsApp groups, which is very useful to me even today. So I would certainly say that you should look very closely at the peer group you will be joining in that institution. Second, which I guess goes without saying, but one should in any case repeat, that is, you should look at the quality of the faculty. Sometimes I think candidates tend to focus more on the salary part than on the faculty and the kind of academic learning they will have. Business education is one part of the education system which is reasonably connected to what you will do in practice. What you will learn in finance is likely to be what you will apply in a finance job. Similarly, sales and marketing has a lot of applications. So I would believe you should look carefully at the quality of the faculty. How much industry experience do they have? What kind of articles have they written? Are they up to date with the developments in the industry? Are they doing consulting and therefore involved in solving actual industry problems? This would be some other elements which would be very useful to look at. So the first element is your peer group. The second is the quality of the faculty. The third and last dimension I would look at closely is how dynamic is the institution in keeping its curriculum up to date and related to what's happening. I said right in the beginning that we are seeing a lot of dynamic changes in the environment. So institutes which are aware of these changes and keep their different course outlines and curriculum up to date and relevant to the emerging changes, I would imagine they would provide a better and more useful educational experience, which will also enhance your ROI in the long run. So these are 3 elements I would focus on.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, while you were talking about vibrancy, I could not stop but revisit your journey of I am Indore for 5 years, wherein within 5 years, it moved to the only second triple accredited campus in the country. So yes, you are.
Thanks, Subrat. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I think you're absolutely right that the vibrancy of campus is going to be a key role and key factor while determining which campuses to go for. Now I come to Ranjan sir and Metri sir. There is a frequent question, and I just want your again inputs at a more broader level. The questions are always about the brand versus the legacy. So there are three words if I talk about, say, IIMS as a brand, and then there are private institutes which have got a larger legacy. And I'm not talking about individual institutes as of now, but I only seek your inputs as experts and stalwarts. Again, while making decision between those 2 genre of colleges, what are the few things students may like to keep in mind? Over to both of you, sir. Anyway.
So Subrat, can I integrate this with Rishi's answer and just build on it, because I think the two are related. So, I think one of the points I want to make is that, when you look at this ROI decision, the way we talk about it is almost as though there is a hierarchical ordering, right? Where you say that you link up, you rank all the institutes on ROI and everybody first wants to go to the best one. The point is that the ROI is person specific. who are you and what are you looking for in an MBA? Are you looking for holistic development? Are you looking at the first job? So aspirations vary across students. So I think the first thing I would say is be clear about what you want. ROI will be higher when there is a fit between your aspirations and what the institute seeks to offer. I think Rishi made very, very interesting and all correct points in terms of, he's talking about industry integration. He's talking about faculty profiles. He's talking about faculty currency. But the equal importance is to understand your ROI. You must ask yourself who you are and what you are looking for. And, for instance, we in interviewing candidates, we are expecting this clarity from our students because our course is a lot about developing the whole human being, right? So, because we believe that has a larger correlation. The second is I just want to comment quickly on Ramanuj's point on women candidates. So, in our 2-year MBA, typically we've had a 40% plus women candidates. And this has come through one simple thing. We find that when you have a values interview where you are checking maturity and you are checking situational awareness, a number of women candidates seem to do very well. So I think this is the second dimension. The third dimension is I think I would also look for an MBA program that prepares you to understand India in its entirety, as well as gives you a global exposure. Because, I think it was possible 20 years back to do an MBA and never have seen a village. I think that is undesirable today. We need people who understand India in entirety, because if India is to grow, if the growth aspirations of an India are to be realized, it must be inclusive. It must be sustainable. It must go to the villages. And we must have management education. We must have students who care about the country as a whole. We must have students with a conscience. Now, if these things, for instance, in my institute, and I suspect many of the others on this panel, these things are important. If you're a student to whom these things are not important, you will not get high ROI out of those institutes. So the point I want to make is ROI is not a hierarchical ordering. It is about who you are, what you are looking for. If holistic development is not important to you, and if an institute is talking about holistic development, maybe that's not your institute. That's perfectly fine. The final thing on money, there's this very interesting quote that I read. I think it was first in Seinfeld, which said, there are thousands and thousands of people out there who work long hours at jobs they hate in order to earn more money, in order to buy things they don't really need, to impress people whose opinions they don't really care about. So my point is, you can lead a superficial money-oriented existence, but the worst thing that can happen to you is you reach the top of your mountain and you feel that the view from the top was not worth the climb. So the sooner you can ask yourself, who am I and how do I want to make a difference to the world, your ROI will automatically improve, because ROI is not only a function of the institute, it is a function of the individual also. So there is a match there.
I think that's a great point, sir. In fact, ROI needs more of an individualistic look rather than just using it as a pedigree to differentiate between students or between institutes. Metri, sir, your views about the same, please.
Okay, so thank you, Subrat. You asked about two things. One is brand and second one is legacy. And before that, I also joined Professor Ranjan regarding the male and female. Male and female, you see last 2 years, if you look at IIM Tiruchirappalli, the batch which graduated, 51% girls and 49% boys, first time in the history it happened, and we have more girls than boys. And the second, there's the first year students, those who are in summer, so there the highest number of students in our even IIM, 92 students, our strength is 30, they joined. So we set a benchmark. But I think the reasons we need to find out why so many are coming to this place. But of course, infrastructure is one of them, and the connectivity, these are the other reasons, particularly for female candidates, and the safe environment and all those things, maybe some of the reasons. But as far as brand and legacy is concerned, brand, absolutely, I think everybody would like to go by brand because you are known by your company, the saying goes. So everybody wants to associate with a great brand. That is one thing. But when it comes to legacy, And today, this disruptive world, the world disruption, future is fluid, strategy is fluid, and also the disruption is happening so fast, it is like flowing water. So in this kind of context changing very fast, I think if you look at the Marriott Hotel and Airbnb or even, all those kind of things, even the old brands, now they are afraid of, even if you look at Tesla, Google, and auto industries, they big brands, GE, Toyota, they're all GM, Toyota, afraid of this all new kind of Google and all. So that is how legacy sometimes maybe, it is not going to be useful in disruptive world because it will not allow to change. So if it is a brand new, even though brand, I can say brand, but it is a new, they are going to make a mark because they don't have history, they don't have legacy. They can start something new. There is no resistance and full energy, full vibration, and those institutions can grow. And that is why old and new, or if you look at the more higher legacy years, and if the spirit to change is there even in older, so definitely they will always remain at the top of the top. But that legacy is not going to work out. So it has to be, the changing mindset, and you should be ahead of the time. You should be thinking ahead of the time, as well as you should be doing ahead of the time. And that is what need of an hour than the rich legacy.
Yeah, thank you, sir. In fact, if I have to just summarize what both of you shared, one example on one hand I would like to take is about IISWBM. When IIM Kolkata was being set up, IISWBM was the mentor institute for IIM Kolkata. Today, I'm pretty sure that almost 90% of the attendees will not be even knowing about the institute IISWBM. So that is one part about the legacy. But I think both what Rishi sir and Ranjan sir have shared about, they talked about agility, they talked about flexibility, they talked about adaptability. So over there, if you have got a legacy and at the same time you are adapt to change, yes, you are always going to remain formidable. So this is how I take the views of both of you. So please.
So Subrat, I just had one point, and I think it must be recognized that, let us say, in management education, if an institute has been around for 40 years or 50 years, there is an advantage to a reputed institute which has been around for 50 years, which means that simply you have 50 years of successful alumni in senior positions. And that has built a network. So there is that advantage if you are reputed and you have a number of years, because you look at any institute in academia, it takes at least 10 to 15 years to take your reputation to a certain point. Because it is when your alumni cross a certain level in the hierarchy that there is a larger corporate reputation that gets built. So I wouldn't do away with it, but yes, I would agree that, if you have legacy and you're going to sit on your laurels in today's time saying, I am so-and-so and hence I will do well, that doesn't work.
That's true, sir. That's true. Thank you, sir. Chaturvedi, sir, as I move to you, a lot of talk. In fact, yesterday only we did a webinar for with the industry people. It was about developing an entrepreneurial mindset. In present times, a lot is being talked about the entrepreneurial mindset. A lot is being talked about being job creator and so on and so forth. As someone who has seen, the diversity and entire cross-section of Indian B schools, what do you think, how ready and how supportive are Indian B schools as far as the chasing of entrepreneurial dreams of their students are concerned?
I think all leading B schools are providing the ecosystem to inculcate necessary skills required to become a successful entrepreneur. There are incubation centers, there are e-cells. Government of India has started Atal Incubation Mission a few years back. Some of the B schools are having Atal Incubation Centers. So I think cities like Bangalore, NCR, where the large number of industries are located and there is a good ecosystem of investors and mentors, B schools, engineering colleges, this is slowly emerging. But problem is not in B schools. Problem is the supportive environment environment to be provided by the government. There are several legal hurdles, and because of those hurdles, because of not getting enough financial support for the budding entrepreneurs, the startup movement is not getting momentum or growth which is expected. But in spite of this limiting factor, because last 2-3 years have been crisis after crisis in our economy, I think the future definitely belongs to entrepreneurial mindset for all MBA students, and those who can take risk, those who have aspirations, they can become entrepreneurs if they are pursuing MBA in some leading, progressive, pro-entrepreneurship B schools. So this is my submission, that no MBA student can be successful if they do not want to become entrepreneur. They have the cultural legacy of middle class, that do a job, or preferably in a public sector or government job, or in a good multinational company. Don't think to become entrepreneur. But I want to say to my young MBA aspirants that every company would like in future how entrepreneurial you are in your mindset. If you believe that you have no risk-taking behavior, then your future growth will be limited, and surely not everybody can become entrepreneur, because entrepreneur like you yourself as an entrepreneur, being alumnus of MDI, you could have done jobs in Asian Paints company, which was your first company, and you would have made big money. But you have chosen the hard path for struggling and starting one company, closing, then starting another company. So I think this cannot be cup of tea for many people. Hardly few people would like to do it, but definitely majority of the students, if they do not want to become entrepreneur, they have to develop entrepreneurial mindset.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Rishikesh, sir, if I come to you next, I am Bangalore. If I talk about in the country today, it is also known to be one of the pioneers in the executive education. Now, with the online classes, there is a very interesting questions which certain aspirants and participants have. In earlier, when I'm talking about earlier, I'm hardly referring to say maybe 6 months or a year ago. There were online classes for the distance learning programs. And one thing which everyone looks at is that, okay, whenever those programs were there, their fees were on the lower end. And now, again, B schools are talking about that online classes in the full, their flagship programs, which is there. So there is one comparison which automatically comes about fees and all. Without getting bogged down by fees at this point of time, what I want to know from you is, how do you differentiate between the online classes and the experience of students for those two set of programs?
Well, I think we are quite conscious of the challenges in making online education as vibrant as the education in the classroom. Certainly, this concern is not a new one. It has been raised by people for many years now, and it has become, of course, very critical at this particular point of time. So what we are doing from the institute side is actually multiple things. First, we are looking very closely at the course content to see how it needs to be modified to suit teaching in a digital or an online environment. So in terms of what should be covered in the online session, what should be done maybe in terms of some videos which are made available prior to the class, how do you make best use of polling and meeting rooms and all the other features which are available on most of the online platforms. A very fundamental look is being given or taken as to how the courses should be taught given the different teaching platform we are using now. The second important point is that we are quite conscious and sensitive of the fact that an important part of the MBA experience is outside the classroom. A lot of it has to do with the interaction with other participants, what you learn from them, projects that you do in groups. And we are trying to make sure that these elements of the MBA program are not lost. So a lot of special emphasis is being placed on maintaining social environment. Of course, a lot of it is online, but still to connect people, to form interest groups, to enable virtual clubs to be formed, to find other ways of enabling interaction between the participants so that they get to know each other. In short, we are trying to overcome as many of the apparent shortcomings of the online platforms and trying to uh, bring in the elements of what you could do in the classroom or in a physical environment into the online platform as well. In that process, we are hoping that we can minimize the difference or gap between online education and having education in the classroom. Having said that, it will never be 100% as good, but we'll try to make that gap as narrow as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Metri, sir, I come to, sorry, please, Ranjan, sir, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I agree with all this, but there is one point, which is that, look, you're evaluating this. When you had a 20-year learning curve for classroom teaching, you had a 20-year learning curve for classroom learning, and you had a 3-month learning curve for online teaching. So we are going to get better at this very, very fast. And I'm going to give you a very, very simple example just to make a point. You know, I started teaching a course on design thinking. And one of the things we like to do is we like to have group work where participants get up, write notes on post-it pads and put it on a flip chart. And that flip chart is available for everybody to see. And when I got into this, I said that that is not possible to do online, right? How will somebody, because they're in different places, how will they do it? But it turns out that there is a tool called Padlet, and there will be many other tools where you can send people a link and multiple people can use this kind of collaboration exactly the way it would work in an offline world. So my point is that there is a learning curve and we will get better at this. This is one. The second is the largest benefit of online, we are missing the point, is not to compete with the classroom for the premier institutes. It is that Rishi, who is one of the strongest teachers in the country, is today only accessible to IIM Bangalore. But if Rishi were accessible to 10,000 students across the country, even in a recorded format, maybe at 60% of normal effectiveness, the benefit to society is very large, number one. Number two, language dubbing is possible. Okay, so I think online is for reach. I think online is, you know, the big societal issue in India today is that the best teachers do not reach all the students. How can you increase the reach of your best teachers even at lower effectiveness? That's a larger long-term societal benefit from online.
Metri, sir.
I think I fully agree what Professor Rishikesh rightly said. And since this online just 3 months back we started, and of digital technologies are there, and using them, you can reduce the gap. You cannot 100% close the gap, but you can reduce the gap between the physical and virtual classrooms. Probably the how to engage the students involvement and engagement, the pedagogy, the kind of pedagogy we use for the online, that plays a very significant role. Maybe a simulation games and engaging the students through gamification and flipped classrooms and e-discussions, virtual groups, and also podcast. You know, so many techniques are there. Using those techniques, probably we can engage the students, or also you can ask the questions and you can see the voting and all voting kind of thing. So, and engage, probably it will get the attention of the students. This is the way currently there is a crisis and we have to go online. But some of the courses, softer courses, I must say, like leadership kind of courses, mentoring coaching kind of courses, some of the softer courses, probably non-verbal communication and close proximity plays a very, very significant role for learning process. There online at present, there is a challenge. Some technology may come, we can overcome that also. At present, such courses, baskets of such courses, face-to-face gives the best result. And at present, such kind of courses going to be a challenge. And even if you look at these, some of the virtual groups and all, even for career guidance and all those kind of things, also some problems at present may be there. But as Professor Rajanji rightly said, Ranjanji rightly said, maybe new technology, something else will come and probably we can overcome that also. And since the learning curve is very, very small, and probably next year, probably our improvement may be it manifold and we may get a better result. But one thing is clear, this arrangement is only for the crisis. The moment crisis is over, we will come back to face-to-face. So face-to-face is the best at present. But in crisis is there, just to continuity, we have to stopgap arrangement, we are going for online.
Right. Thank you so much, Metri sir. In fact, whatever you, Rishikesh sir and Ranjan sir shared, one thing at People Labs, what we are definitely trying to do, and we'll be rolling it out in 45 days or so, for some of the specific specializations, we are creating a pool of industry experts, and we are requesting them to take the specific components of the course work, so that even the students who are being impacted, they have got a perspective from the industry people in a virtual format. And I categorically remember Rishikesha sharing in one of his write-ups over social media that a lot of sectors are being impacted, but one thing which COVID has definitely done, that it has accelerated the acceptance of certain things in higher education, which was otherwise very difficult to have. Chaturvedi sir, as I come to you, there is a question, and this is no new question, but in the present times, again, students are thinking about that the coming times are going to be more for specialists, that is a marketing specialist or a finance specialist or an operations specialist, or the world is going to accept more holistic general management and overall business managers rather than specialists. So your views about it, sir. So you need to unmute, sir. So you need to unmute, sorry.
I have dealt this issue for last 2 decades. My institute is offering general management program as well as the sectoral programs.
Right.
In large number of B schools, there are some general programs like MBA in HR, MBA in logistics, MBA in retailing. So large number of programs offer sector specific domain knowledge. But I think the MBA general management program giving specialization in functional area of management like marketing, finance, OBHR, operations, etc., systems, etc. I think that will remain in big demand, because so far we are convinced that there will be big changes in the economy, global economy as well as national economy, but there is a lack of clarity in which direction these transformation will take place. So having a degree which gives you holistic idea about the economy, about leadership, about the management will definitely have lasting value. If you have a MBA in particular sector, the risk will be more.
Okay, I come to you, Ranjan sir, now. Sir, one of the specific concerns of a lot of students have been about the one-year executive programs. That, it's anyway 11 months to 12 months, out of which 3 months or I don't know, 4 months, 5 months are going to be online. And after that, we do not know what would be the time taken by industry to recover. So for those set of people, what would be few, again, guiding factors both you and Rishikesha would like to share that they may consider for whether to take admission for this year or not?
So, if you're looking at advising somebody who's looking at taking admission in a one-year executive program this year, right, you're talking about typically towards the end of the calendar year, which means that when they're in the job market, you are looking at 2021 end. I would say that should not be a concern at all. I would anticipate that you will definitely see a good upswing. But I think the larger issue there is when you look at the one-year executive program, you must be very clear about what you are looking at from an MBA. So again, my question, I would still say that don't generalize these questions. Ask yourself what you're looking for. Typically, if you have 5-6 years of work experience, my advice for the one-year MBA program would be look at it to broaden, work on your existing experience and then broaden and understand the linkages between functions. If you are looking at using the one-year executive program to change a specialization after 6 years of work experience, that might be a little bit of a challenge. But the second dimension, I would also say for any student, because we've seen 2008. Essentially, if you are a strong institute, you put all your resources behind your students to get them the best possible outcome, and the strong institutes still do well in terms of placements. The economy as a whole suffers. You find the weaker institutes get hit a bit harder. That's the general experience. But my other experience is this, that whichever year you graduate in, over a period of 2 to 3 years, any economy effects balances itself out, number one. And number two, the fact that you have seen struggle stands you in good stead for the rest of your career. In fact, they say that if you're looking at a strong marriage, if that marriage faces a crisis in its first 2-3 years and survives that crisis, that marriage is considerably strengthened. It's a bad analogy. Nobody would wish the current situation on anybody. But I'm saying that, look, strong institutions, strong students who are clear about what they want, it will not be an issue at all. The second thing that I tell every student is that, look, supposing you're taking 3 months of courses online, at some point in time, some recruiter is going to ask you, how did you make best use of those 3 months? And if the student has a good answer to that and can demonstrate resilience and learnability in crisis, every company is going to value that attitude. So that's money.
Rishi, sir, over to you.
Yeah, I would agree with Ranjan, and I would like to emphasize a point that he made earlier, which I think is even more relevant when the one-year program is what we are looking at. And that's the fact that when you go into an MBA, you should really be very clear about what you hope to get out of it, what is your reason for doing it, do you have a plan for what you will do after the MBA? So this whole concept that he underlined earlier, where ROI is not a general kind of calculation, but it's very specific to an individual, I think that's particularly important in an executive MBA program. One thing which has concerned me in the past is that I find many participants in executive MBA programs making very generic statements that are very similar to somebody who has gone into a 2-year MBA program without experience. That to me is simply not on, because by the time you have 5 or 6 years or 7 years experience, you must certainly have a perspective of what are your strengths, where are the areas you need to improve, how is an MBA going to make a difference to what you'll do in the future. And I think if you can think through that carefully, you should be able to find good opportunities even in the tough and challenging environment that we have today. The problem will arise if you have not given careful thought to this. Then I would certainly caution you and perhaps suggest that this is not the right time for you to do an executive MBA.
Thank you, sir. See, a lot of questions which I'm asking, I would like to share with all the participants, that a lot of you are asking questions around the same theme. So even while I am not taking your respective names and attributing the questions to you, what I am doing is, for sake of time, I am collating 2-3 questions at one go. I'm picking those themes and I'm going ahead with that. So please do not think that your questions are being ignored. I have a constant eye on the questions which are popping up. Metri sir, I come to you now. And you have seen both the sides. You were there at MDI when first PG HR program was launched. My congratulations that IIM Trichy has launched the HR program this year.
Yeah.
And at IMI, during your deanship, I think BFSI program was also launched.
Right.
Again, a question which is typically from freshers, the aspirants who are there. that there are two kinds of programs, one in which specialization is decided at the very outset, and two in which you get to decide your specialization after a year. Which of the two options are good, or what are the few things you may like to consider before taking that decision?
I think, Subrat, this question, specialization, those who are clear about, a planned strategy, I can say, Professor Rishikesh, language, I can say, strategy language. So basically, a planned, somebody wants to specialize in banking and finance or HR program, they are very clear. So such students, definitely they opt for the specialization. And somebody, he wants to be, he or she wants to be a specialist, or in general, I may be in marketing, or I may be in consulting, or I may be in finance, dual specialization. In such cases, students may go for PGP, but it is all more or less individual specific. It cannot be generalized. Some people are very clear what I want to do. Some people, no, I want to pursue my career only in HR. So such people, definitely they will not look at the program, even though that program is old program, but they definitely go for HR. If somebody wants to do finance, then they are looking towards finance than the general MBA, because 2 years they spend they study new courses, new generation courses in finance or HR. They study in that, and they develop a kind of domain knowledge in that, and they will become expert. And such cases, definitely they prefer specialization. But nevertheless, in today's context, whatever it is a specialization in general, but along with the time, those who keep on learning, unlearning and relearning, and they are going to be succeed in this disruptive world.
Sure. So another thing, I was going through the questions, and I would like to answer some of the questions, but I'm just sharing for the benefit of everyone. A lot of kids have shared about their apprehensions that, I get into a college, can the college assure me 100% placements? And if they do not assure me 100% placements, what happened to my education loans, and how am I going to repay all of that? Dear participants, with all due respect, let me tell you, these schools are always going to be a facilitator in your journey towards excellence. They are not the placement shops. Even if I quote Harvard, that says 90 in 90, that is 90% of students end up having a job within 90 days of passing out. So as far as this is concerned, that can we have a guarantee and all? Let me assure you that no one can guarantee you that. And if you're looking at that, you're basically outsourcing your own efforts. You're basically outsourcing your own thoughts to others, which is not a right way to look at your education, whether you are looking at MBA or any other future higher education you want to go for. Again, I come to you, Chaturvedi sir. One positive thing of this COVID, as all of us, and including Ranjan sir, talked about, is that, we can benefit from the wisdom of, experts from any part of the world. So my question to you is, earlier location used to have a discrete advantage, because I know of institutes who are just established in the heart of Mumbai. And it is not only your institute, Ranjan sir, I'm referring to other institutes also. And the only way they have been able to, deliver excellence is the dependence and their exclusivity to being there in the financial capital, Mumbai. But in present scenario, do you think that location as a factor is going to reduce in its importance, because now everything is available to everyone virtually? So you have to unmute. You're muted.
COVID-19 has forced us to think in a new perspective, and availability of online connectivity and the learning curve of managing the times in different continents. This will give advantage to educational institutions to connect with teachers, industry leaders, and also social leaders for any topic or for any class. This will become more easier than it used to be in past. And I think mobility for next 2-3 years will be affected. So there will be less and less uh, students mobility and faculty mobility. People would like to connect rather than to travel. So I think COVID has given lot of troubles, lot of problems, lot of pains, lot of suffering. But at least there are some advantages also, that everybody is available to talk on webinar like this.
Thank you, sir. I must share with everyone that we are now moving towards, the last 10 minutes of our webinar. And a couple of questions. Again, I come to you, Rishikesh, sir. A lot of kids have, that question about their second MBA, that they did their full-time MBA, say, from one of tier 2B schools, or not such a great B school. They are not moving ahead in their career, and they want to go for a second MBA, which may be an executive program. What are your few advice and suggestions for them that they must consider before they go for one of that?
This is a tough question, because clearly these are candidates who want to advance in their careers. Looks like their existing education portfolio is not helping them adequately in that. But I would still prefer that they look very closely first at why have they not advanced so far. Is it only because of the prior MBA that they did, or is it something also to do with the kind of opportunities they got in the workplace, or could they have perhaps done things differently? That's one thing I would request them to look at very carefully. Because I think one thing we have been trying to emphasize throughout this webinar, that an MBA is not just a passport to a better job or to a better salary. It's much more than that. I think Ranjan emphasized holistic education. Other panelists have also been urging participants to look beyond just the salary after the first job. So I would urge participants in the webinar to look carefully at their skill profile, look at where their gaps are, look at what are their aspirations, what are the ways those can be met. And yes, sometimes doing a second MBA might help, but actually in the top schools, at least, we rarely see people who've already done an MBA, because I think it also perhaps is difficult to get into a top school if you've already done an MBA in another institution which is not rated so highly. So I would just urge people to be cautious about that, think through it very carefully before they contemplate doing that.
Thank you, sir. In fact, there is one question about that, everything is happening online. What will happen to the placements? Will the placements happen also online? Let me assure you again, hardly, it was precisely last Saturday when we were having a discussion, and I think all the industry panelists, they said it in unison. One was from PayPal, other was from Boston Scientific, and the third lady was from GSK. They were unanimous in saying that this year, 90% of the B school placements are going to be virtual, if not 100%. So that is going to be the way which we may like to keep in mind while we are talking about that. Metri, sir, I come to you. And when we talk about online, India is a land of diversity. The problem which many kids face is that they are from remote areas, they are from rural areas, wherein connectivity issues remain a challenge. So do you think that with this, their chances of getting into better institutions, or their chances of getting at par with other peers, that is going to suffer?
I think, Subrat, one thing, as you said, we have a huge country, and from metro to second tier town to third tier town to the villages, and more than 5 lakh and odd villages. So depending upon where the student is staying, which state and which town, so definitely there is a digital divide, and there is a huge gap between the bandwidth and connectivity from metro to a second tier or third tier town. So this kind of divide will be there. Otherwise, in physical classroom, it is equal for everybody, campus environment. But if you come to the online, so this divide will be there. It will get rather magnified in smaller places, and particularly some of the states' problem may be more severe. But this kind of things, because first time we are moving to the online, maybe in 6 months to a year, definitely if higher education goes to the online, because online has become mainline. So in that case, government will definitely, because now we call face-to-face as offline. So offline has become sideline. So in such environment, I am sure the state government definitely ensure that the countrywide connectivity, bandwidth, and audiovisuals, everything, they will set it right, probably with the cost, and also maybe some kind of scheme government may bring. And also, I think the ministries may also look into that. But initially, for a few months, probably this kind of difficulties, inequalities, you can always find. But I think, as far as my personal opinion is concerned, this is going to be a temporary phenomena very soon, because the crisis comes and automatically solution also follows. Maybe in few months or so, a government may set it right, and also students also have their own way, work it out, and they can find the solution.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ranjan, sir, before I come to you with one of the last questions. See, there have been a lot of questions about whether the baby IIMs worth joining, whether there is an X institute worth joining or Y institute worth joining. To all the attendees, once again, I will humbly tell you, do not look at what the institute is worth. Please look at what you are worth for. And please also look at what are the alternate options you have got. Because many a times we start judging the other persons, in this other people, and in this case it's a B school, very fast, rather than judging ourselves. If you deserve better, if you are so sure about it, you can definitely take a year gap and appear again. But if you do not have choice, please, once again, I will humbly request that do not look at the panelists out here to give you that reassuring touch so that you can blame us afterwards ever in your life that no, also they did not stop us from taking this decision. So I thought I will clear that out over here. Ranjan sir, my question to you is, in the present circumstances, a question which many students ask. I agree, I did not study in 10th or 12th and my ACATs are bad because I come from a small place. But now many institutes, they give so much weightage to profile that I can never do an MBA. So what should a person like me do?
So there are two answers to this question. I think the answer is in your question. So when you look at profile, what do we look at in profile? For instance, if I look at my institute, I will say that if you are an exceptional sportsman at state level, or you are an exceptional music player, we have scope in our admission criteria where that is given some weightage. So I think the larger issue is not so much purely academics. Of course, there is a modicum of academics that one looks at. It is this, that in something that you have pursued passionately, have you demonstrated excellence? And we try to give weightage for that. Having said that, there is CAT and CAT has given a certain weightage. So there is a point in the question. Let us say just for hypothesis, that there is somebody whose percentages are in the 50s and the 60s throughout, and the CAT score is also not there and does not meet the cutoffs, but wants to do an MBA. Then if you are the kind of person who does well in terms of actually working with people and in the real life situation, if you go to industry and you demonstrate performance in industry, then your work experience can be a way back into kind of management education. But I think incidentally, I don't know whether I should be saying this as a business school head, but I have seen people who have never done an MBA join from engineering and have had very good careers and have learned. To me, learnability, management education, whether you pursue it formally or on your own, the individual and the individual learnability is the more important criterion. So as long as you have that learnability and that attitude, I think the worst thing is don't equate your worth with your percentage. That's where the problem will start. Chaturvedi sir, as I come to you,
I asked you your views about, general MBA and then specializations. Now, if you look today, many of the institutes, and I would not say that they are of great, all of them are of great repute. They have also come up with a concept of super specializations. So we have marketing. There are institutes who are giving specific degree or a certification program in marketing analytics. Or if I'm talking about AI, or if I'm talking about blockchain. Do you think that going for such, super specialization so early in their career is not an advisable step?
I think it's a personal choice. If somebody is very passionate about blockchain or is having engineering background and he wants to pursue a career in blockchain or disruptive technology, artificial intelligence, then these super specialization may be relevant or useful. Yesterday, I met one of the alumnus of IIM Calcutta, and he was telling that after doing my MBA, I decided to join insurance industry. And after 20 years, he's a very successful entrepreneur and running his own company where more than 2,000 people are working. So I think people who are passionate about doing something, for them super specialization may work because they will put up requisite efforts and they are ready to take the risk. But definitely people who are not passionate about these new developments and they want to have a holistic development, for them, MBA General will be most appropriate.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Prapti, can I have the third poll now?
All right.
Do we have the results, or do we wait for 10 seconds?
Another second.
Sure.
So here are the results. So 46% attendees today think that 2 to 4 years is a good time to be considering measuring the ROI for their management education.
Sure. Thank you so much, Prapti. If you ask me, for me personally, the biggest takeaway from this webinar has been that the number, at least, which has moved beyond 1 year, 2 to 4 years and higher, that number is almost 50% now. So I think the message which we wanted to convey through this webinar, through all the esteemed panelists over here, that has been well conveyed. Sirs, I will quickly come to each one of you and maybe your parting thoughts, which you'd like to leave the audience with. Please, over to you, sir. Ranjan, sir, please, if you may go first.
You want me to go first? I had hoped to listen to everybody and then so I was sitting back very relaxed and,
I'm
waiting.
sorry.
So, if we define management as the art and science of getting things done through people and resources, management is a very universal skill. Management education, I believe, is much more than the MBA degree. And I think that is the largest opportunity that this offers, that more and more people will be aware that there will be lifelong learning. More and more people will enter the workforce. And I think the largest opportunity is to look at the lifelong learning market. And honestly, for B schools, I believe the opportunity is in looking beyond the product-centric view of management education and looking at a learner-centric view of management education, which means all of our discussion is focused on the MBA. But the ROI from management education is much more than the ROI from the MBA, because management education is about staying relevant, and the need for relevance is never greater than it has been today. So that's my parting.
Thank you so much, Ranjan sir. Metri sir.
I think my one sentence, last sentence about this overall webinar is, all the MBA students, they should be focusing on lifelong learning. MBA just beginning, it is not an end in itself, and staying relevant, as Ranjanji rightly said. So this is Jnanam Anantam. That is extremely important. So continuously keep on learning and staying present. And that is what basically makes them relevant, as well as move on the ladder and become the best of the best.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Chaturvedi sir, I come to you.
My message to dear MBA aspirants: your parents have pursued life having one worldview. For you, I think the world has changed, so you have to reinvent life and your career after every 2 or 3 years. To reinvent your life, reinvent your career, you have to do it again and again. And while choosing a college or selecting an MBA or deciding the return on investment, you have to keep in mind life is not unidimensional, it is multidimensional. So have a holistic view, as my fellow colleagues have said again and again.
Thank you so much, sir. Rishikesh sir.
Yeah, I think I would agree with the other panelists. Life is much more than just money and return on investment. So be clear about why you are doing an MBA or getting into management education. Have goals which are much bigger than just focused on money. Look at all the other dimensions which fellow panelists have been talking about. That is much more likely to give you all-round returns, some of which would be intangible, which you might not be able to put on the monetary scale, but which will make you happier in the long run.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I thank each of the panelists for sparing their valuable time on this Sunday evening and sharing their valuable thoughts. It was a great, enriching session for all of us out here. Thank you so much, attendees, for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you over here. Before I sign off, just one thing I'd like to share. In fact, that's a promise which I'm also making to the esteemed panelists over here, that in the coming time, in the present times, as the situation is slightly fluid, we at People Labs, we remain committed to doing more such sessions, just to inform that there is no information asymmetry between different stakeholders of management education. We are already planning a second webinar on the theme of the futuristic pedagogy of management education, online or offline, that will be done in the next 10 days. Once again, a big thanks to all of you for kindly sparing your valuable time. Thank you so much, attendees. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, People Lab. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.